All right, welcome back to the Bleav Fantasy Football Show. We talked in the last episode about the free agency winners from a fantasy standpoint, people who are now in better fantasy situations as they stand at the moment after free agency and all the moves, the people that changed teams and now find themselves in better situations, the people who did not change teams but because of the moves that were made around them are more valuable to us in fantasy. Now we are going to take a different tact. Michael Fabiano, I'm Lindsay Rhodes, and we are going to discuss the people that we do not believe in as much. These are the losers, or, anyway, that sounds mean, but
loser.
It is what it is.
The hell.
Let me reframe that. These are the people whose fantasy value
decreased.
There you go. The players who lost fantasy value. There we have it.
Winner.
There we have it.
That's a
I'm
winner.
a professional communicator. It just takes like 3 sentences for me to land on one that makes sense and is what I want to say. Okay, so where do we want to start here? Who is flashing red light?
I'd say among the players that did change teams, and there's also like collateral damage, and we'll talk about those players too. I don't love the fit for Tony Pollard in Tennessee. I really like Tajay Spears. It's going to be a committee. I think it's going to be like a 60-40. Spears is a talented guy. I have Calvin Ridley as a loser here too, because I don't know what Will Levis is going to be. And I know Trevor Lawrence was not great last year, but he goes from an offense that had Lawrence and a team that had a pretty good offense to a Titans team that might have a pretty good offense, but he's going to have to contend with Nuke Hopkins, who is, listen, Nuke will probably tell you he still thinks he's an alpha. He's not in fantasy anymore, but he's still a hell of a player. And Will Levis already has the rapport with Nuke Hopkins. And you also have to factor in, you bring in Tony Pollard, you've got Chigakonkwo. Treylon Burks is there still too. So I don't love, like Calvin Ridley is a loser only because I just don't see him being better than he was last year. And he was a top 20 wide receiver last year towards the bottom of the top 20.
Well, you also factor in the exit of Derrick Henry, right? And the fact that they're changing the offense. It's Brian Callahan, the former Bengals offensive coordinator. So, and he has said he wants to make this look more like the Bengals offense. So it's going to be a very different look. That said, to your point about Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins had a catchable ball rate, since that's our stat of the week, of 69.2%.
That doesn't seem good.
That's really bad. So, but it's worth pointing out too, when we're talking about that stat for wide receivers, that certain wide receivers who play closer to the line, like short and intermediate routes, that catchable ball rate's always going to be higher, right? Like the guys that stretch the field and do the contested catch thing. And clearly that's part of what we're looking for with DeAndre Hopkins. Like they connected on a lot of those big plays in Will Levis's first game. Remember, like we got all excited because they connected several times on that. And we thought that might be something we were going to see more frequently. And then it wasn't consistent. But I do think, and I say this all the time, your number one wide receiver is only as good as your number 2 wide receiver. And so it's good for both of those guys that they now have each other to work with in the offense. But Tajay Spears to me is the biggest loser in all of this, because I really thought that this was going to be a breakout year for him and that he was going to be in more of a position to be a bell cow back in Tennessee. And that clearly with the addition of Tony Pollard is not going to be the case. So don't love that.
That's definitely a bummer for sure. I like I said before, like in terms of the players that change teams, I don't find a lot of losers. Right? Like a Jonnu Smith is
a short episode.
A team that doesn't throw the damn ball to the tight end. He's kind of a loser, but nobody's drafted Jonnu Smith.
Arthur Smith to prop him up.
Right. I just don't see a lot of like awful like fantasy moves. Like I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. This guy went to this team and he's going to be awful. Antonio Gibson, like who cares? Gerald Everett, who cares? Joe Flacco, who really cares? So
okay, time. What about Ramondre because of Gibson?
I still feel like Ramondre is going to be the early down back, and maybe he loses a little bit of his luster as a pass catcher, true. And his one breakout year, he had a lot of catches. He had like 60-something catches. So I have him more as like a push, though. because I feel like they're still going to get him the football enough where I don't think it's going to be like a 50-50, right? Split. I still think Reminder's going to get the football enough, especially down near the goal line where he's going to retain RB2 value. Maybe not high RB2 value, but RB2 value. But it's borderline. So, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. But I think the losers, Linz, come from the guys who didn't change teams, but now have different weapons around them, players throwing them the football. And the guy I have on my list is Justin Jefferson. And you may think, Fabiano, you're a flipping nut.
I do anyway.
Stop drinking Jack. He's awesome. All of that, except I don't drink Jack or do crack, but Justin Jefferson is awesome. All right. Trust me. I've never even smoked pot in my life. Not once. I'm just saying. Maybe I should to calm down a little bit. But when you go from Kirk Cousins, who was on pace to throw for 5,000 yards last year, and as much fun of Kirk Cousins as you want to make about all the money he's made, and he hasn't won jack, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Yep. And he was a really good fit for that system. Now you go, and I'm sorry, don't get mad, all right, but Sam Darnold is not even close to Kirk Cousins. And if they bring in a rookie like a J.J. McCarthy, he is not going to be as close to Kirk Cousins. So you have to wonder, is Justin Jefferson going to be as consistently dominant in the stat sheets without Kirk Cousins?
Yeah.
And I think that's a question that we're going to have to ask ourselves. Is he still the number one wide receiver in fantasy football, or does someone usurp him? I think it's a legitimate question.
His floor lowered, right? Like, I think his ceiling is still the same, but his floor certainly lowered, and you have to factor that in because you're already trying to decide which of these top wide receivers you want to take. So I agree with you that he probably drops a few for sure.
Yeah, and would you rather have Tyreek or Justin Jefferson? Would you rather have Jamar or Justin Jefferson? I mean, would you rather have CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson? Like, hell, CeeDee Lamb is going to be my number one wide receiver, and it's not because I have 2 cowboy helmet behind me, and I love him to death, and I have his jersey. I haven't worn it yet, though, because I don't go out in public wearing sports jerseys. But CeeDee Lamb still got Dak Prescott throwing on the football. Who's Justin Jefferson got? Sam Darnold? All right, so that's one guy where I think we got to think about it. All right, Rashee Rice. Last year, he saw 22.3% of the targets in Kansas City's offense in the last 7 games of the year. That's not going to happen with Hollywood Brown. And I don't think the Chiefs are done at wide receiver, Linz. I don't think they're done. I think they might draft a wide receiver at the end of round 1, and they may draft a receiver regardless of if it's a first-round pick or not.
Let me ask you a question, because we've established that my internet's not as fast as yours. So I'm going to ask you to look up a stat here.
Okay.
Because when you say that, I wonder, obviously Kelce has a high target percentage too. And so when you say it's going to go down for Rashee Rice, I'm wondering if, because obviously there's a huge size of targets that went to wide receivers they couldn't trust last year in Kansas City, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that was one of the problems, is that nobody else really emerged. So let's say that you are not rotating wide receivers through, and these targets aren't spread out as much. They're going to Rashee, they're going to Hollywood, they're going to Travis Kelce, and then they're going to, like, to a much smaller degree, a few other guys that are rotating in. I'm wondering, like, it still feels like a pretty high percentage of targets that are available. I'm wondering if it is absolutely given that it goes down from 22%. So what I should have said at the beginning of this, so you could have been looking up the stat while I was saying all of that,
I'm trying to, like, figure out what did you want me to look up.
Is
trying to figure it out.
Find me a wide receiver, like, duo where like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the highest percentage of target share where you have multiples? In one offense,
where you have multiples. You
like,
keep talking and I'll start
like looking. Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Like, what are the target share percentages that we're looking at there? Because I think if you're looking at an offense where you're like, oh, there are multiple guys there who are targeted quite frequently, then it gives us a better idea of what a realistic target share is for a team that has more than one wide receiver.
Oh, I am going to look that up right now. Do you have any elevator music available?
No, but you know what I can do while you look that up?
While I search that, right?
Yeah.
So
you're going to know it.
Look at it right now. So
you have to stop talking if you want me to fill.
Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, did you find it already?
Looking.
Okay, then let me tell you a wide receiver that I think is probably going to be a fantasy loser. And this one feels weird because I love the move from a football standpoint.
Right.
It's kind of like your Justin Jefferson, right? Like, but not exactly the same.
I've
Keenan
got the
Allen.
numbers, by the way.
Damn it. Right? Like, I literally said the name.
Go ahead.
If you'd said it 3 seconds before, then I would have been able to delay it would have been like a tease. Okay, you give me the numbers and then we'll move into my guy.
Last year, Tyreek Hill had 31% of the targets.
Woo!
And Jalen was at 19.
Okay.
But they had no one else. They don't have a tight end. They had nothing. The next best wide receiver in terms of target share was 6.9, Cedric Wilson.
Yeah. So if you look at this and you think Kelsey's Hill in this scenario, and yeah, I think you're probably right. You're probably right.
Last year, overall, Rashee Rice saw 17% of the targets for the Chiefs. And the next best
I thought you said 22.
Watson at 9. 9, that's it. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just saying if you take Justin Watson and Sky Moore and like just put all these guys, make them one person, and that's Hollywood Brown.
Listen, I mean, I don't know that Rashee Rice will lead that team in targets next year. I don't know. Maybe wide receiver. Maybe he will. Yeah. But Hollywood's a hell of a player. He's got to stay healthy. But now he's got Patrick Mahomes throwing on the ball. And remember, started his career off in Baltimore. Greg Roman, not an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. Then last year, we talked about it on the previous show. Percentage of catchable passes was crap. Yeah. Because the quarterback play until Kyler got there wasn't any good.
No bueno.
And Kyler didn't get there until wicked late in the season.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown's a good player. He's a good player.
Okay, now my guy. Yeah. My guy. Thank you for looking up my stat. Mm-hmm. Keenan Allen.
Yeah, no,
to Chicago.
I love Keenan Allen. I love him. Keenan Allen, yeah. The winner is Caleb Williams, who we assume is going to be the quarterback in Chicago. The loser is both Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Yeah. Now, we could say this. In LA, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams did have a very good season together, same season, right? But typically...
When Mike was there.
Right, in the past. But that was with Justin Herbert at the quarterback position.
Right.
Okay? Now, you got a rookie quarterback, although he's, super talented guy, and we hope that he's not the next USC quarterback bust.
Stop it right now. He's going to be great.
I'm just saying.
But he's going to be a rookie.
I hope he is. I hope he's great. Listen, I got nothing against USC. I just like to break your stones. But
big trust. Trust me.
I don't know. Like, unless this is Nico Collins and Tank Dell last year and Caleb Williams is CJ Stroud, I don't know that Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are both going to be able to retain their high level of value in terms of targets and fantasy points. In fact, if Keenan Allen had stayed in LA, he's a wide receiver 1. If DJ Moore had stayed in Chicago and not had to contend with Keenan Allen, he's a low wide receiver 1. Yep. Now that they are together, I think probably neither one of them is more than a 2. Yep. Would you agree?
I do. And that's why I think so. DJ, where did he finish last year? I feel like, he had some really good games in there.
DJ Moore, I want to say off the top of my head, was wide receiver like 6 or 7. He was really good. Let me look.
On the season? Okay.
Let me look. He was the wide receiver 6. He
wow.
averaged 17 points a game. Just under 17 points per game. He was really good.
Then yes, and I agree with you about both of them. Because Keenan Allen, my point with Keenan Allen is that he had an insane season last year, right? Like he was so good. Like he was wide receiver 1 in fantasy for a long time. He was having his best season in fantasy that I can remember. And I think part of that was the way that the offense was constructed, and he was it. Like they just didn't have anyone else. Like his target percentage, like that was it. They're going to Keenan, and Keenan is a lock. He's going to catch all the balls. But also they kind of used him in such a way where it was very specific and they played to his strengths, which is what teams and coaches should do. But reception perception charted his play. And Matt Harmon pointed out that he ran a ton of short and intermediate routes last year. We're talking digs, curls, etc. Right? Like they specifically played to his strengths at this point in his career. He is aging. He's not getting a ton of separation downfield. He's not as fast as he used to be, but he is still one of the best route runners in the NFL. So if you go to Chicago and you use him very specifically that way, then he could be a candidate for a large number of targets, especially with a rookie quarterback, right? Like he's safe, you can trust him, and the catchable ball rate is always going to be higher because it's short and intermediate, and less downfield. And now you don't have to do as much of that downfield because you've got the DJ Moore and you've got both of them and they can do different things. But I mean, he's going from that specific situation without wide receivers on the field that you want to target in a highly ideal utilization situation with a very good quarterback that is at this point in his career a very professional quarterback. Caleb Williams is going to be a rookie, right? Like, so we don't know. I think my point is that there's a lot of uncertainty that is surrounding him to a degree. I mean, he had a catchable ball rate of 82.4 last year, Keenan Allen. Do we think that number is going to stay the same? Do you think that his targets are going to stay the same? My guess is that even if he's a very good fantasy asset, he's not going to be what he was last year. And that's why I talk about the fact that we're going to have to downgrade him in fantasy circles.
Let me ask you another question.
Sure. Yeah.
Does the weather affect Keenan Allen's value? Because he goes from LA, where all you fancy pants is out there. You love the weather. It's so beautiful out there. You are. Go ahead and do your Valley Girl thing.
We can go from the beach again.
Exactly. Oh my God, that was awful. And to now, he's going to freeze off his couillons in Chicago. If for at least part of the year.
Yeah. And have to go to Green Bay and all that stuff. Right? It's not like this guy has only played in Los Angeles in his career. Like, let's be real, they travel. And he's been good.
I get it. But like Kansas City could be wicked cold, obviously, but not really like for the majority of the season. Denver, you're going to play there once. That could be, wicked cold depending on when you play there. Las Vegas is in a dome. But I mean, like, his home games now in Chicago, Soldier Field, again, it's cold for not the whole year, but I mean, or you do not care about that? What about Caleb Williams? He played USC. Oh, it's so beautiful in California and play it all on these teams. I don't even know, like on the West Coast where it's all gorgeous.
He played here for like 2 years, dude. 2 years. Relax. He's been elsewhere. Okay. It's not like he, that's the only thing that we've seen him do. I'm not as worried about that with Caleb Williams, especially like his size. Like I think he's fine. But I am
rooting for Caleb Williams. I am rooting for him.
Are you?
Because Caleb Williams has two things going against him. USC has not had a great, and I love my trends, and you could crap on me all you want. USC has not had a great trend of quarterbacks coming out of college and thriving in the NFL. They haven't. Okay? They just haven't. Bottom line, it's not me making fun of you. Carson Palmer, like okay. I mean,
very good.
Yeah, what?
He was very good.
Yeah, I know.
But I know you're saying that's the last one.
And the Bears, and I was talking to Seth Rollins about this, name drop, on text yesterday or the day before, because he's really excited, but he's also very cautiously optimistic because he knows that this is the first time that the Bears have ever drafted a quarterback number 1 overall. The highest they had drafted a quarterback was Trubisky at 2 a few years ago, and that didn't work out very well.
Right.
When they've drafted quarterbacks, it hasn't worked. Justin Fields and Lindsay and I could argue all day long about why it didn't work, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Cade McNown didn't work. Kyle Orton was, they thought he was going to be, it didn't work. So, and hell, bring any freaking Bears quarterback. Jim McMahon won a Super Bowl, but statistically he wasn't any good. He was an average quarterback, right? I mean, Rex Grossman, he got to the Super Bowl, but he wasn't a fantasy star for crying out loud. And from a real football perspective, he wasn't that great either. So Caleb has to overcome the Trojans. I'm not going to say it's a curse. And the fact that the Bears have not done well with their quarterbacks. So Caleb Williams can break 2 trends, not curses. I won't say curse. That previous USC and Bears quarterbacks have had to contend with. And I think he will. I'm rooting for the kid. I think he will. Because selfishly, from a fantasy perspective, I want Keenan Allen to still be great. I still want DJ Moore to be great. I want this offense to be great, which means Caleb Williams has got to be at least pretty damn good. But back to our point, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, I cannot see these guys continuing like what Keenan Allen averaged, 11 targets last year a game, 10 or 11 targets. And then DJ Moore was averaging 8 or 9 targets a game. I mean, that's going to be hard, especially, that's just going to be hard to 1 week it'll be Keenan, 1 week it'll be DJ Moore. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard to continue the consistent type of production that these guys were putting up there when now they're contending against one another for targets and an offense with a young quarterback under center.
A couple of other people who I think, I don't know that it's the well, in some cases it's like Eck. Eck is somebody who is going to be in a very different draft.
No, I hate saying bad things about him, But
I would also argue that it is what it is. Like, it's not specifically the landing spot. It's what was inevitable coming off of last season. Like, we knew that Ekeler was not going to get drafted this year in fantasy drafts where he got drafted last season, and the expectations were going to be very different. So he's going to be a fantasy loser in that sense. Like, his ADP is going to be way lower, but I don't think the landing spot makes him a loser. I kind of think that the specificity of his role actually makes me, now that his ADP will be lower, maybe a little bit more likely to draft him than I was confidently at the top of the draft.
The fact that you were able to say specificity, number one, was pretty good after you were
proud of myself
a little bit ago.
Stop it. We edited that out. You don't know.
I think this is a push. Nick Bakay, push. Because number one, I'm not going to say anything bad about my friend, but number two, Austin's not, a guy that we were going to draft in the first round again. Like, even if he stayed with the Chargers, he wasn't. Totally new offense. It wasn't going to happen. So if you going into this year thinking that Austin Ekeler is going to be a low 2 or a nice flex, and I would probably suggest the latter will be where he's drafted, then he will absolutely not be a loser because he's going to be what we thought he was going to be.
He's not going to be a low 2.
We know that Austin Ekeler, God bless him, I love him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not going to be an elite fantasy running back likely in Washington while Brian Robinson is there. It's just not going to happen.
You know what he will be? An elite fantasy analyst. He's proven to be very, very good at this stuff. I love listening to him talk about running backs.
I'll get him on the show. We'll get him on.
All right, we'll do that. I mean, he's got his own podcast to protect, right? Like, he's got a brand going.
Yeah, I know, so he'll come on. Don't worry.
Okay. So Swift to me isn't, but I didn't. I think it kind of feels.
Move. I think Swift's a lateral move. Yeah, I mean, he was barely a top 20 running back last year. I think he'll barely be a top 20 back. The only way that he's a loser is that the talent that he's got in Chicago to contend with is better than he had in Philly with Khalil Herbert and Roschon versus Boston Scott and Ken Gainwell. But I see him more as like a lateral move. One of the other big losers, I mean, we've been dancing around the Chargers the whole time, but Justin Herbert, I don't know who that. Justin Herbert right now is Will Smith in the empty room on that video on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
The hell am I throwing the football to? So, and again, my rankings are going to come out this week at Sports Illustrated. I don't even know if I'm going to have him in my top 15. I don't know. Not yet. I don't know what they're going to do in the draft, but Justin Herbert is a loser. Not. He's a handsome guy who probably dates beautiful women and he's got a lot of money. So in life, he's a big winner. I'll trade places with him all day long. But
he's such a winner. He's such a winner.
Imagine if I looked like Justin Herbert. Oh my God, my life would be so much better.
You'd be a winner too.
But and a little of this. But bottom line is that free agency, you lose Keenan Allen to a trade. They cut Mike Williams, and now you've got a guy as a rookie who was not real great in Quentin Johnson as your one, and Joshua Palmer, who I like, but he's not a two.
Wait, I would flip those even in this conversation. I would have Josh Palmer.
Whatever you want to say.
It doesn't matter because neither of them are either of those things.
Lost Gerald Everett. I mean, you're losing a lot of dudes. So they got to replenish that. And I remember saying this to you when they hired Greg Roman. I'm like, I don't know if I like that move. I didn't swear. I didn't swear. But because Greg Roman you know,
You should do it,
Taylor,
Fabs.
Colin Kaepernick, Lamar Jackson, completely different quarterbacks that he's worked with. And none of his quarterbacks were these amazing stat sheet stuffers in terms of throwing the ball outside of Lamar in that first MVP season where he had 36 touchdown passes.
Dude, but he's never had a quarterback like Justin Herbert, though. Like Lamar's right. Like we're talking about an incredibly talented quarterback in very different ways than Justin Herbert. And this is one of the things we started the last episode with. You have to adapt to the pieces that you have. And if they go in and they try to do an offense that is like San Francisco's or Baltimore's when they have Justin Herbert at quarterback, then I think we're going to need to revisit whether or not this was a smart hire in the first place. You have to be able to adapt. Okay, Fabs, anyone else jump out at you as a loser? This is good. We have a lot less losers than we have winners. We like that.
Adam Thielen lost because Deontay Johnson will be there, and suddenly Adam Thielen is not the number one option for Bryce Young. We talked about the Bears. Cole Kmet is a loser because you're bringing Keenan Allen and Gerald Everett. And hell, the Bears may not be done. They might draft a wide receiver. So I think he's a loser. We've talked about Tajay Spears being a loser. DJ Moore also is a guy who's a loser. And here's one. And the Cowboys offense.
Oh, God.
Loser. Why? You lose Tony Pollard, who's your starting running back. You lose Tyron Smith to the Jets. He gets cut, free agent. We lost I can never pronounce this guy's name, Toss. Tyler, how do you pronounce his last name? It jacks me up. I can never pronounce his last name. Biadaszz. Good luck. I don't know. See, I butcher his name all the time. And when I can't say a name, I just say it. Because I can't say the damn name. I just tell you.
Tyler B.
Tyler B. We lose him, so we lose 2 offensive linemen. We cut Michael Gallup, who, by the way, that was a crap, stupid contract. They never should have gave it to that flipping guy. And so, okay, whoever the Cowboys draft at running back, whether it's Jonathan Brooks or whether it's Trey Benson, whoever it is, fantasy sleeper, automatically, no questions asked. None. We are not going into next season with the duo of Rico Dowdell and Deuce Vaughn. It ain't happening. So we're going to get a running back in the draft who's going to be a sleeper. We also need offensive linemen. And our first round pick in every mock draft I see, offensive linemen. I see the kid from Oregon, the center, who's got 3 names. What is it? Powers, Johnson, Jackson.
Oh, yeah, something. Jackson Powers Johnson.
That guy, yeah. By the way, cool name. I like that. He's got 2 names and Powers in his name. So I'll take him. I'll take him. But the Cowboys right now, their running game, loser. Dak Prescott, loser, because you lose 2 big pieces of your offensive line. Cowboys got to replenish in the draft because we didn't do jack nothing in the free agent market. Not going to get into that because I'm already losing my voice and I'm going to get pissed.
This feels a little bit like RG3's rant about Caleb. Now I feel like you're doing this for clicks. The Cowboys rants. I feel like you check your engagement. You're like, oh, when I post Cowboys rants, this is when my numbers go up.
You know that Cowboys rant that I did after we got beat by Green Bay? Got 200,000 views. I was like, it was fun to get it out. It's therapeutic to yell and scream and swear about the stupid Cowboys. But if it also maybe helps my page views, well, hey, it's a happy accident.
All right, Fabs. All right. Just a quick reminder, because obviously now that free agency period has kind of died down, we have a little window here before the draft where there's still lots of football to talk about, obviously, but we're also going to shift our attention, not on this show, but just in life, to the NCAA tournament. We're just filling out brackets. BetOnline is your bracket headquarters for this season with the best bracket contest out there, and odds and lines and info on every game and every round right up until the national championship. You can access the most up-to-the-minute wagering information anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices, and even track your bracket real time all the way through the tournament. So head to BetOnline today and get in on all the action. And remember to use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BetOnline. The game starts here. Michael Fabiano, we have now reached the conclusion of this incredibly long 2 episodes of free agency. Fantasy winners and losers.
We're like the teacher in the Peanuts cartoon. A lot of people don't know what the hell that means. Go back and look at it on YouTube. We just can't shut the hell up. but we hope you enjoy the podcast.
Except the point of the Peanuts teacher is that they didn't actually listen. She was just a voice in the background. We are the opposite of that. Everything we say has value.
That's right. And I'm sure for whoever could speak Peanuts teacher language, she was saying something of value too. I have no idea. I always wondered why they did that. Why can't you just have the teacher talk? Why was it?
Because that's how kids hear teachers. Am I really explaining this to you, Fabs? We're like going back and like through your childhood and explaining the things that you saw.
What I want to know is how
that's
Charlie
how a
Brown,
teacher sounds to the kids.
I want to know how Charlie Brown, who was, I mean, how old when how old is Charlie Brown? He's
that's
like
a good
8
question.
or 9. He's got one hair on his head in the front and one on the back.
He's bald. Yeah.
How are you balding at that age? I don't
prematurely.
Get it. And if you look at the faces, Sally is Charlie Brown with blonde hair. And a lot of the other characters in the Peanuts, they're all Charlie Brown, except for they have different hair or they have a lot of dust and stuff like that. I should shut up because Toss is going to kill me right now. And Lindsay will as well. But this is me getting off the tracks, which I never do.
Lucy's the one who pulls the football, right?
Yes. We hate Lucy. She's not good.
I am Lucy to your Charlie Brown. That's what I feel like our relationship is. So
you're definitely not Peppermint Patty, that's for sure.
Okay. 2 things real quick. First, Thursday, we will have a new episode dropping. Hopefully you've listened to all of these 2 episodes by then. It might take that long.
5 different episodes.
We're going to do a mock draft, and I'm so excited. We'll get an idea of where these people, like we've talked about, where we think they're going to go. We'll put it into practice, and we'll have a better idea of like what kinds of rounds we're talking about for which people and strategies that you can employ. And I'm very much looking forward to that. So that will be dropping on Thursday. Please join us then. In the meantime, thank you for listening to the Bleav Fantasy Football Show presented by BetOnline. Please go if you enjoyed today's show. Like if you didn't, please don't do these things. Leave a review. Like, subscribe. What else do we need them to do?
Don't vandalize.
Oh, Fabs. Why'd you do that?
We can talk about that another
time. That's a story from my life. Yeah. There's some things, that I am going to need to get taken care of. And then I'll tell you all the story. Anyway, Lindsay Rhodes, Michael Fabiano, check us out on social media, Lindsay_Rhodes, Michael_Fabiano. And please join us again on Thursday. Thank you so much for listening to the Bleav Fantasy Football Show presented by BetOnline.